Achieving Success with Olivia Akin. I am your host, Olivia Akin. Each week, we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We give you real-life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top-notch guests. Today, we are speaking with Peter Kofitsas. Peter Kofitsas is a renowned wellness and leadership expert who has worked with Fortune 100 companies, educators, and top business leaders to combat burnout, build resilience, and enhance well-being. With over 25 years of experience and advanced degrees in nutrition and physical therapy, Peter bridges the gap between physical health, mental clarity, and leadership strategies to drive measurable success. As a sought-after speaker and coach, he delivers science-backed practical solutions through keynotes, workshops, and his signature 5-minute to Fitness Plus program. Passionate about inspiring transformation, Peter equips individuals with actionable tools to optimize health, maximize productivity, and unlock their full potential. You can find Peter by going to his website, peterkofitsas.com, or by emailing him at peter@peterkofitsas.com. Hello, Peter. It's fantastic having you on the show.
Hey, Olivia. Thanks so much. I'm happy to be here.
I'm excited because there's so many different aspects I want to cover with you. And even just reading that intro right now and saying it, I was like, ooh, there's something else I need to bring up here that just hit my mind. So we're going to dive into many different parts of this. But to start off the show, can you tell me what success means and looks like to Peter Kofitsas?
Absolutely. And it's a great question to start with because so many of the clients I work with, they're successful, but they're not actually sure what they want to be successful. So for me, I get laser focused. I know I'm successful when I'm speaking to companies or school districts, inspiring them to be great leaders and to take care of themselves. I also know I'm being successful when I look and feel amazing. Like I want to have fun doing what I'm doing, Olivia, right? I don't just want, it's just not just a job. So I literally want to look and feel good. And then third, is just as important as those two things is relationships. I know I'm being successful when I'm nurturing the relationships, my 3 children, my girlfriend, the mother of my children, my family, my friends, this relationship, all those 3 together, when I'm doing them, I know I'm being successful.
Mm-hmm. And that being said, and as you mentioned too, and I said in the introduction, we sometimes have such busy lives. And I want to get into that in a little bit on that balance, but also showing up for yourself, as you just indicated in what success means to you, because it is sometimes when we have a lot going on and a lot of people we want to have relationships with, build them out, be present. Sometimes there's so many moving balls in the air, we forget that if we don't serve and build ourselves up, we can't serve and build others. And I think that's where a lot of times we do find those moments of, even if you're someone who is a go-getter. I recently had this the other day, so I'll use myself as an example. It was the weekend. I kicked butt during the week. I was like so happy. I'm like in such a great space for not just ending the week, but into next week. And there were a few personal things that for a few weeks I'd like been like, okay, that's not coming up yet. Like if it's not this week, I could get it done next week, right? Aaron's doing different things.
Mhm.
And then it all came crashing down. It was the weekend where like literally all those things had to be done by the following week. And I just like start crumbling. I'm like, oh my God, it has to get done. I I feel like we're not going to have time with the things we want, do in a fun perspective. Like, and I just started like getting so overwhelmed in my own head that my boyfriend like looked at me. He's like, take a minute, take a breath. Like these aren't life or death situations. And it's all stuff that you could do today, but you're you're looking at them as like such a daunting task. And I'm like, I needed that moment of clarity and perspective to be like, okay, now I can be present. Now I can knock them out. But sometimes in our own lives, we can get that way. And then we lose focus on not just the priorities, but also that self-care that needs to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I applaud you for your authenticity. Like, because someone could look at you as you're very successful podcaster and everything else that you're doing and say, wow, she's got it all together. But then when successful people reveal something like that, it's such a incredible way to connect to an audience to say, oh yeah, I have those problems too. And we're still in a position of authority, but we're human. So I love that
Mhm.
authenticity. I appreciate that. There's a couple of notes that I made when you were talking about, and when your boyfriend said it's not life or death, what popped up in my head was anxiety, because w- what I've experienced with my audiences, companies and schools and high level, from high level executives all the way down, is of chronic stress these last 5 years, and specifically anxiety. And the difference is stress is, there's traffic on the way to work and you have all these things to accomplish. They're external, but anxiety is internal. Anxiety is like, if I don't get this done, it's irrational. I'm going to get fired. My boss is going to hate me. I'm not going to get promoted. I'm going to get passed by in that promotion. People are going to be upset with me. And sometimes it literally feels like your life is in danger. So prioritizing and saying, wait a second, this doesn't make sense, right? Wonderful you have someone in your life that could say to you, hey, this doesn't make sense. Like you got it all together. You're going to be okay. Um, I'm just curious too, what did you do? Did you do anything specific that helped you just get grounded and say, okay, wait a second, I'm in control of this. I can take care of this stuff. Was there any one strategy
So,
you used?
so in the moment, and you've probably dealt with this too, when you're in that like stressful, because like you said, personally myself, I thrive when there's a lot on the plate. I've worked in professions up until starting my business where it's go, go, go. You have to make decisions with what's in front of you. You have to understand it could be long days. You're juggling multiple things. So that to me does not bother me. There's certain points though, and we all get to this level where you get that moment of breath and then you realize that there's some things that maybe for whatever reason you're like, I could put this off, I could put this off, not that there's anything bad with it. And then that like, maybe it's like a bubble, it kind of like pops a little hole and you go, oh wait, no, I'm not ready, I don't want to do it. And for me in the moment, I honestly like didn't, I knew my boyfriend was being helpful, but I also was like, you don't understand, stop telling me, like this is not helping. In reality it was, but I was just like,
Right.
just stop telling me it's not, life and death. And what ended up happening was we sat down and he made me take that time. Originally, I was like, you're talking to me right now, but while you're talking to me, I can then try to be doing these things that I'm looking at of like needing to get done and stressed out about in getting done in the next few hours so that we can go do XYZ that has been planned for the weekend and be present in that. I think that's also really important when we look at the aspect of everything is sometimes it isn't just, okay, I have to do this, but you want to make sure you're present in everything. And he
Right.
really was like, well, if that gets delayed, that gets delayed. You're sitting here and we're talking through this because something is up. And then once we talked through it, I was like, okay, now I create the action plan because I've sat in those emotions and
Mhm.
I've said, okay, this is where my perspective really lies. And that's kind of how I approached it. And sometimes I personally am good at being like, okay, let me sit in this for a few minutes and then let's move forward with it and just realize this is where we are right now and go through that. But it's a lot easier to do in business and in other aspects as a leader than sometimes in your personal life. And
Right.
sometimes you need that accountability.
Yeah, 100%. You touched on so many important things. Like when you asked me to define the success, I said relationships, and you're mentioning your boyfriend, your relationship, right? He's trying to help, but sometimes, right, family or someone close to you has good intentions, but you can't hear it right now. But it's getting in there in the subconscious mind, and then eventually you're able to get back on track. So you're connected. You surround yourself with people who want you to be successful and support that. So that's one of the keys of success. The other thing that I find too, Olivia, is when you do pause and take that breath, and I really encourage all of my audiences and my life coaching clients and health coaching clients to do that. Just to pause is you you can decrease that anxiety. We'll talk more about strategies for that. Your brain comes back online, and then, oh my God, all of a sudden, it's like, and you know this for high achievers, it's crystal clear. I'm going to do this thing right now because it's going to have the most impact on my vision, my purpose, my success, everything that I value. And then it just comes, and you're like, okay, I know the path now. But it's human to be overwhelmed, to lose focus for a little while,
Mhm.
to, you know, get distracted, to not take care of yourself, not be your best self, to miss a workout, to maybe indulge in a meal. But what successful people do more often than not, and it's one of the reasons they're successful, is they come back to who am I? What am I doing? What's my purpose? Oh, and now I'm back on track. And they do that sooner than later. And it's a great strategy to have.
That being said, in talking about burnout, I love how you also mentioned there that it is normal. A lot of times, as you and I've kind of been talking about, with higher achievers or people who are reaching towards a goal, they think, okay, that's not okay to be feeling this way. It's not okay to be sitting in
Yeah.
this. But in reality, everyone has those moments. And you have to give yourself grace in those moments and go, okay, no, it is okay to be here. And now let's work through that. But often burnout and resilience in terms of what people need to start doing, like better habits, routine, and mindsets, we often talk about those things, but there can be sometimes a gap between success isn't about adding more, it's about letting go of some things.
Mhm.
And this is important because a lot of times we all think, okay, to get to from point A to point B in a faster amount of time, right? Maybe it's driving your car. If I just drive faster, I'll get there sooner. If I just add things to the plate, even if it's a longer day, I'll just get there sooner. When in reality, sometimes it's about letting go. So, from your experience, what's one thing high performers need to unlearn in order to truly thrive?
Yeah, great question. The first thing that comes to mind, and there's a lot, is people pleasing. A lot of us who are successful, um, we're successful because we have good qualities, but we also bring some qualities that can negatively affect us. People pleasing is one of those. I spoke at Chase Bank, some high level executives, and they said, how can I, like, carve out more time, like you're saying, more. There's no more time. There's just the time that we have, and they're getting distracted. They're getting interrupted by employees putting out fires all day long. They never really get to their stuff, and so they don't feel good at the end of the day. So one of the top things to do is to to get present, to say to those people in a very tactful way, okay, I hear you, to empower them and help them to solve their problems so that you can stay on task with your issue. When you do that, you feel more productive, you get more of your tasks done, and time seems to open up. It's kind of like having that clarity and coming back. All of a sudden, you seem to have more time because now you're laser focused on what is the most important one, two, three, four tasks. You've delegated some of the responsibility to people that are around you that hopefully you've either handpicked them or they were selected for you, and you've nurtured them and you've encourage them, you've empowered them, and say, you can do this, and then send them off on their way. Good luck. You could report back to me in a couple of hours, and that gives you the time. So people pleasing is saying no in a very tactful and respectful way and saying, I have to do this now, and I'm going to talk to you at 2 p.m. Or we're going to schedule a meeting at this time. Instead of me putting out that fire now, pulling me away from what a priority is, then I don't reach my numbers. I don't make my emails. I don't do my outreach. I don't feel good about myself. The employee doesn't feel good about themselves because I put out their fire. They haven't been empowered. And I find that what I observe with my clients and my audience is burnout starts when we're just trying to do everything, because we don't want to say no for authentic reasons. We have empathy and we care, but also for reasons like, if I don't do this, is someone going to judge me? Is someone going to be upset with me? Is someone going to say they're not a team player? All these things, this self-doubt could come into our mind that could sabotage us and pull us away from that vision of success that we have. That's what I've observed, Olivia.
And you talking about that even resonated with me and made me thinking as you were saying that story, because reflecting back now as we're talking, there's been many different points, whether it's in my business now or working in professional sports or Lockheed Martin, where I just didn't say no and use my voice to be like, okay, I can't do this right now. And then it led to your point, the burnout, the exhaustion, the not being present or being able to deliver everything. And then you're leaving at the end of the day, the end of the week, just feeling like even if you've done a great job taking care of all those other things, did everything you have on the list get done? And I'm a very big person. I have my planner next to me. Everything gets written down for personal stuff and professional stuff. And I keep track of that. And like you said, it's prioritizing it. Where does everything fit? Whether you're someone who, you know, blocks their time out, whatever it might be, but also saying, here's the priorities. This is what needs to get done. This is the second list of, it's on the first list. But if I don't get to it today, I could like put it on for tomorrow and identifying that. And even what you brought out about saying no in the burnout, I recently had a discussion with a producer that I work with on a lot of their clients' podcasts. And this is a partnership I have. And we're talking and she's getting things. She always introduces me now as like her right hand. And like I couldn't run my business if it wasn't for Olivia. And it's been great because I've been able to help her clients. I've challenged her to grow, but we work together and I help her make the best business decisions. But recently it got to a point where I was like to this producer, I was like, you have to set the standard. She was like, well, we can't. And I'm like, no, if you're telling the client it is okay to deliver things to you or provide approval 3 days after we ask for it, tell them to do stuff on the weekend, that doesn't affect you because your part's done. That affects me. Now I'm working on the weekend. I'm not getting a day off. I'm attached to my emails. I'm trying to go, answer questions for you because you're not reading the email correspondence. I need you to do XYZ because I have my own business. I'm doing this to help guide you and your clients.
Mhm.
And obviously that's a partnership, but it's also the needing the transparency in the moment, being like, you're gonna cause me burnout and these aren't even like this isn't my business. This is,
Right.
I'm doing this and we're working together and obviously I'm getting money from it. So like let's not skew it a different way. But also in my priority of things, your business is not my number one priority in making sure it runs and functions and clients are happy day in and
Mhm.
day out. My priority and to not have burnout is to make sure my business is running effectively,
Mhm.
efficiently, and making sure everyone's happy. And there needs to be, I feel like, when we're scared to say no or have the hard conversations or people push back on that, the conversation needs to be, why is that being pushed back on? Why is that going back to me? Because I think that's a big gap as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I do want to comment on something else too. When you said your scenario that you just shared is the scenario that I said, okay, so I'm the executive, I'm the head of a department, and I have employees that work for me, and they're coming in and asking me. So you have a relationship with this person, and they're asking for your help, and you're giving them guidance. But at some point, if we don't have boundaries, and if we don't say no in a respectful and authoritative way, we don't get our stuff done. So as you were just confirming, um, that having a boundary is not a bad thing. And most of the time, people don't know it, right, Olivia? You could say to this person very tactfully, I love working with you. It's so awesome. Let's do it this time. Or
Mhm.
here's what I can do. Like, people don't even know you're doing it. You're redirecting them, you're being authoritative, but you're doing it with empathy and love and authenticity. And you're saying to them, I like working with you, but here's how I'm going to work with you. And are you okay with that? And you're almost like nodding, and they're like, yeah, I guess so, because I want to work with you. And now you've stepped up to this position of authority, but that person is like, wow, Peter's a nice guy. He really gets it. He wants to help me, or he's going to help me eventually. And then
Mhm.
I can stay focused. Again, where I see business leaders and executives get distracted or head towards burnout and overwhelm and not feeling appreciated is they lose focus because they're doing all the other little things because they haven't set boundaries, they haven't learned how to say no and how to delegate, and sometimes they haven't in a crystal clear way know exactly what their goal is in the position that they're in. And they know what they're doing, what they want to accomplish, and exactly why. If you can answer those questions, then whatever comes at you, and Olivia, anything and everything can come at you. You don't know when it's going to come, but you're almost like you have a force field around you and you're going to let some things close. Other things are just going to bounce off. Nope, that's not me. That's not me. That's going to distract me. Other things you're going to let permeate, get through that like blood brain barrier and say, yeah, this is important. I'm going to do this. But you're never losing focus of the big picture, your purpose, what you define as success. That's where I feel one of the reasons people feel they're burnt out. They don't feel like they're getting anywhere. Did I accomplish anything? My God, I worked 60 hours this week. I worked on the weekend. Did I make any change? I know parents feel like this a lot with their children. I have 3 children. Parents can feel this way because they're doing everything for their kids, but sometimes we're just losing focus, and we have to set those boundaries, get reconnected to the purpose. Why am I doing? Why am I here? Why am I here right now in this position? I spoke to a group of teachers yesterday in a junior high, 100 teachers at a junior high, and I asked them the question, "Why are you here?" And they paused. Like, "Why are you a teacher? Like, were you called? Is this the best job you can get?" Like, I'm honest. I'm just like that with my audience. Like, I'm just like being honest with you. Why are you here? Like, tell me. And eventually they're like, to help children, to serve them, to show them guidance, to be their mentors, et cetera. I said, yeah. Did you think about that all at all today? No, I was putting out fires. The kids were off the wall. They weren't listening. They weren't following the lesson plans. I had to repeat myself 100 times. Okay, they're children, but aren't adults like that too, Olivia? Aren't our employees or the people that we work with, can't they have those childlike qualities too? So the best that you and I can stay connected, why am I here in the first place? Then all of that other stuff doesn't seem as overwhelming. It will be less likely to distract you, and you'll feel better at the end of the day, the end of the week, that you actually did something towards the goal.
I also like how you brought up there, not just about the why and why am I here today, what's driving me, but also the fact that sometimes you have to stay laser focused in what you're doing, especially in today's day and age with, as an entrepreneur myself, the amount of LinkedIn messages I get where people haven't even taken a minute to understand what I do. Like I get probably 10 emails a day asking me of like, "Oh, is your podcast on YouTube?" And I'm like, literally, did you even search the podcast? Because it's
Mhm.
like the second thing on Google. The iTunes link, the Spotify link, YouTube,
Mhm.
my website. Like I'm the first 5 pages of Google, but it's not that hard to find the
Mhm.
YouTube link, right? So you're getting bombarded with people who haven't taken the time to do
Right.
it or don't align with your goals, where sometimes it's like, two, yes, thank you for that referral. However, that's not where I'm focusing on where I want my clients to be sitting right now and having those conversations as well. Because so many times we take clients because we feel, especially starting out, I should emphasize that
Mm,
too, because we feel like we need the money, we need the insurance, whatever it might be that puts them in that pot. But in reality, if it isn't where you're trying to go or what you're trying to solve, problem wise, whatever, you're going to end up you've probably seen this, get burnout, be overwhelmed. You're not going to feel satisfied. The client's not going to feel satisfied. So sometimes
right.
saying, thank you, but this is not a fit
Yep.
is so much more than just potentially brushing them off, but a power move as
Yep.
well.
Yeah, it's a filter. You're putting up a filter. Like, you're going to spend the time to explain to this person. Like, if you just researched me, you'd find my YouTube. Like, that's a time suck. And I say that respectfully. You and I and that person have so many more important things than to answer a mundane question, something that you could search for yourself. It also is, for me, a demonstration of the caliber of the person that's reaching out to me. If you didn't do literally 30 seconds of homework to click my link to find out where I am, then do I really want to do business with you? You know, I say that respectfully, Olivia. Like, I want to work with people who are super motivated and want to get somewhere. They really want to do something. They want to make a difference. There are people that, I know you know this, that come into our lives that see us as successful, and they want to interact with us. And that's awesome. I love that. And I was just starting out once. You were just starting out. And we were grateful for anyone that would just acknowledge us and say, hey, sure, I'll answer your emails and I'll do this. But there is a time when you're just not going to, that your time is so important to do really good things that you can't take the time. That's when you say no. That's when you set the boundary. That's when you send a quick email back saying, this is, thanks so much. This is not the right time right now. And then you're back on task. Instead of taking the time to do something that's not going to get you any results towards your professional life or your personal life, you're going to, at the end of the day, again, you've done stuff that you don't feel good about because you're just putting out fires, and then you're not recharging your batteries because you didn't get towards that goal.
That being said, so often success, and when we're on our success journey, is framed as something we need to go through personally. If I could talk, individual resilience, discipline, and mindset set shifts tend to be framed in a way where we have to do it by ourselves. We have to go on this journey. It's all on our shoulders. But what about the role of our environment? How much of burnout and well being is actually shaped by the systems we operate in, whether it's the corporate culture, social expectations, or even how we don't personally design our daily spaces? And for someone who feels trapped in an unsupportive environment, what is the first step towards reclaiming their well being without completely overhauling their life, either?
That's a great question. The first thing I would do is, if I feel unfulfilled, well, one of the number one complaints of corporate employees that work in corporate, is feeling unappreciated or underappreciated. They feel like no one cares really what they're doing. Is to give yourself the value first. Is to, again, go back to get laser focused on, why am I here in this office, in this position? Why am I striving to get up the corporate ladder? And frame it in terms like, okay, you have to produce for the company. Whether you're generating revenue or generating leads, you have to produce. There's a marker, there's an objective measurement that a company identifies. Okay, now we're successful. What I've seen, and this is what I encourage my clients to do, and what I think is brilliant, is to tie in how am I personally going to benefit, and my family, because I love my kids. I love being with my girlfriend. I love weekends and having fun, cooking with friends. How is me achieving that goal, that sales goal, those phone calls, those emails, that outreach, writing that proposal? If I can say, okay, I'm doing it because I have to, it's part of my requirement of my job, and I want to be successful. But if I can find a personal, authentic reason, it's called reframing. your boss or someone asks you to do something you don't feel like doing, but you know you probably should because it's going to further your career or maybe it's going to generate more income. What I think is brilliant is to say, how can this personally benefit my goals, my personal professional goals, and my personal life? And that's a form of reframing. Say, okay, so we reach our goals. I feel good about that because I want to be responsible to my company or whatever. But that also means for me more income. Financial freedom is important for me. It's important for me because it lets me do wonderful things for and with my family. So you can be at a job that you hate. I'll give you a quick example. I'm also a physical therapist. And as the economy shifts and speaking is affected by the economy, right, whether they hire a speaker or not, I go back to physical therapy to fill in the blanks with my income. And I'm very grateful for that. 17 years ago, I got a job because I had to. The economy was crashing and I needed to supplement my income. And I was working at this office that I thought was beneath me. Now that goes into a whole other set of values of why am I resentful? Why am I not more successful at this point in my career? Why am I not making more money? Why am I not richer? Why do my friends have more houses, bigger houses, more cars, et cetera, and all that stuff? So that's a whole other conversation. So I'm in this office. I think it's beneath me, but I'm taking it because it pays well. And so I was working with Frank, my therapist at the time, who I love. I think all of us could benefit from a really good therapist who's on our side. And I would say to him, Frank, why am I not more successful at this point? Why do I have to do this? I really, really hate this, And he goes, that's one way to look at it. He was brilliant. He didn't judge me. He didn't contradict me. And what do you mean? He goes, if you look at it that way, then you're right. Then you feel bad. Every conclusion you're going to come to is going to be hurtful to you. Yeah, you're not as successful because you're not as smart as the other people. You don't work as hard, whatever. If you ask yourself a poor question, you're going to get an answer that's going to hurt you. If you ask yourself a better question, so Frank was like, what's another way to look at it? Peter, why are you working in this office right now? And I really had to think about it. And he just sat there, he was quiet. And long story short, what I came up with, I'm here to support my children and to do what I have to do as a father and bide my time until something changes. I figure out a different business model, the economy comes back. So with Frank, I was able to tap back into my success formula, or part of my success is my children, people that I love. So every day I would go to that office and I would get this feeling like, oh, how many people, they hate driving or commuting to their office and they can't wait to get the heck out of there. Can't wait for 5 p.m. or 9 p.m., whatever it is. And I would reframe, I'm going because I want to be a great father. I want to be a better father than the father that I had. And I'm doing this for my children, but I'm also doing this for myself because I know supporting my family and not disrupting our lives is ultimately going to benefit us. And it did. And it helped me. Ironically, I'm still in that office once a week, and I love my patients. I love the owners of the practice. It totally shifted. They're some of the closest friends that I made in that practice. And it was just the help of my coach, my therapist, who helped me just reframe it, see the exact same situation from a completely different point of view. Olivia, I didn't have to change anything except my perception. And that changed everything.
And that being said, too, I want to touch upon the health aspect because you have a unique perspective of integrating the mind and the body. So, why is the body so important to integrate, especially for people who are so busy, to make sure that they're achieving in all these different aspects?
This is such a great question, and I just can't believe that this is overlooked. The power of nutrition and the power of exercise is so overlooked by the business community. I'll give you a quick example. Again, as a physical therapist, I worked with Jason Kidd. If you know the NBA, Jason Kidd is like one of the all-time best NBA players ever, and I helped him in his rehab. And he had a nutritionist that he hired privately. And I said, wow, that makes so much sense. I had a nutrition degree. I have a nutrition degree. I said, do all your teammates? He goes, no, Peter, I don't know why. I don't understand why. They have the money. why they don't work with a nutritionist. Why wouldn't they have someone help them eat optimally so they could have optimal energy, they could heal better? So Jason Kidd really put something in my head all those years ago, and I've been talking about it ever since. You want to be successful, okay? And you have an idea, you have a vision, you're an entrepreneur, or you're working your way up a company, and it's business, it's corporate, it's corporate, it's corporate. Why wouldn't I use such two incredibly and infinitely powerful resources? The food that I eat, the energy only comes from one place, food, and the exercise that I do. You probably know this, Olivia. When you and I exercise, every single time, the body is releasing neurotransmitters, norepinephrine, serotonin, dopamine, endorphins, natural painkillers, human growth hormone, testosterone, every single time we exercise. Now, think about this. I said this, I did a keynote for a corporate, a mortgage company at their annual sales rally. And like, Peter, can you motivate our people? Like mortgage sales, a really, really tough market right now, right? Last couple of years. I was like, of course. And I was like, guys, are you looking at your nutrition and your exercise? Some of them were, I started workout January 1st. I started a diet and I fell off. I said, you might want to reconsider. Infinite energy if you eat a certain way. And it's not that difficult, but you should work with a coach because there's a lot of misinformation out there. And a simple thing, when you exercise, what do most people think about when they exercise? Paying the bills, their mortgage, they didn't finish that email, they got that employee is so difficult, their kids need them, they got to, make lunches for school the next day, whatever. What I do is I say, you probably don't want to think about that stuff when you exercise. You could think about it later. What you want to think about during exercise, if this makes sense to you, is your vision, your goal, your business, what you want. More than anything, what you must have. Why would you think about it during exercise? Because your body's releasing these incredible chemicals every single time. And if you direct your mind while your body is releasing these chemicals, you are like Pavlov's dog. You are conditioning yourself to look at exercise as a positive, and it will directly benefit your work. Increased confidence, increased focus, increased clarity, less pain. You know this. If you're in pain, you cannot focus. If you have back pain, knee pain, you cannot focus. Exercise can help with all that. And then you couple it with nutrition. The same thing with nutrition, Olivia. Most people don't know this. And I'm always, I don't judge them, but I get frustrated sometimes because there's so much misinformation again about nutrition. If you and I eat whole foods and look at some of the additives that we're eating and get rid of those additives, then that food will be better digested. We won't have bloating. We won't trigger anxiety because when you get bloated, you can't digest. You've eaten something that is either an additive, it's artificial, or it's not good for you. You know the types of foods I'm talking about. That can create anxiety, that can knock your brain offline. The frontal lobe goes offline, and now you don't know what you're doing. You're just putting out fires all day because you can't get focused. So I encourage, look at what you're eating today. If you don't look and feel the way you want, if you're tired, if you're sluggish, if you can't sleep, look at the food that you're eating. If you're not doing exercise, do some physical activity. Take a 15-minute walk. When you're doing the 15-minute walk, direct your mind towards what and who you love. Could be your work. And if you can couple your work into your personal life too and what you value, your family, your relationship, your children, your weekends, your vacation, whatever it is, now you have a holistic way of looking at business. It's all tied together. And what I find, Olivia, is there's less burnout because you're constantly replenishing yourself with staying connected to your purpose, which makes us feel good, eating well, which makes us feel good, and exercising, which makes us feel good.
And that being said, too, one thing, I grew up being an athlete, had to stop my sport for health reasons. And then once I got to a point where I could do it recognitionally, like just for passion, I did. But I also say I've grown up traveling a lot. I love Disney. I grew up going to Disney at least
Me too.
once a year. when I became adult and have an annual pass, and it's easy to get there, I go more than that. But the interesting thing is, on days when I'm traveling, I can walk 15 easily in Disney, and people are shocked by this. And I use it as an analogy. You can easily walk 15 miles at Disney, easily, the way it's set up and what you're doing in the day.
Mhm.
I exercise that way. When I'm traveling international, you're walking around, we're touring, we're immersing ourselves in the environment. Now, my day to day, right now, for example, being in Alaska, I'm not going swimming. Okay, not really happening. Um, but I make myself a rule that Monday, and again, sometimes I break the rule, so I'm just being fully transparent here.
I love it.
But Monday through Thursday, 4 days a week in a row, 15, it used to be 10. My New Year's resolution was for this year was to bump it up to 15. Worked out for 15 minutes a day. I have a rower in my house, so I row. I like to row. I just sit there,
Mm.
and people are like, "You're only working out for 15 minutes a day, 4 times a week." And I'm like, well, first of all, I feel so busy. I feel like that's the time I can allocate, and at least I'm like getting up and moving. And that for me, it's either first thing when I wake up, okay, I'm going to sit down before I get the day going and get some, clarity. And to your point of what you're thinking, I'm going to start thinking about the vision and this stuff. The way
Mhm.
I currently stop myself from thinking about anything else is watch Facebook like videos
Mhm.
while and just have them like scroll through while I'm on the machine for 15 minutes, because then I force myself to not think about all the other stuff. But
Mhm.
I like your vision idea better. So I'm going to start implementing that. Or I'll do it halfway through the day, where if I feel like I really need to get started my day for whatever reason, whether I'm giving a talk or, need to make sure certain things get done by a certain time, I'll stop my day when I have a 20-minute gap and go, okay,
Mhm.
it's time to get up. I got to move. I'm going to do that for 15 minutes.
Yep.
But so many times when people hear I only work out 15 minutes a day, they're like, how can you only work out 15 minutes a day? You're not really doing anything. And that's why I made the comment earlier as well when I read your thing. And I obviously wrote it, so I knew it, but like it resonated with me in real time. I'm like, we got to talk about that, because at least doing something
Mm.
is making progress. And
Yeah.
so much time, it's like, well, it's not long enough. So I'd love to hear your perspective on how much time do we need? What do we really need to be uh, alluding for to at least being active and getting some of the things you just talked about
Yep.
done, and like centering ourselves in that way, but also for those individuals who go, this is all I got. I
Yep.
don't know if on my plate I
Mhm.
can handle more. Now, in
Yeah.
reality, could sometimes I handle more? Yeah. Do I want to allocate more time? Because
Uh-huh.
then I start to get the feelings that we've talked about today. And yes, but is 15 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, those
Mhm.
lower numbers than spending 2 hours in the gym
Yep.
consistently really
God,
worth?
I have so much. You brought up so many good things. First of all, you don't have to think about your business when you're exercising. You can do what you do. Just make sure it's positive. It's not negative. We're a lot of people scroll negative, like political and conflict, and you don't want that during exercise because your body's releasing all those feel good chemicals. You want to tap into those, but you don't have to. You can meditate. You can be present in nature. You could appreciate that. Having said that, how much time? Great question. In your intro, you talked about something I created called 5 minutes to fitness. I created that for myself. I was 60 pounds overweight 30 years ago, and I wanted to get healthy. And everything back then was like do cardio, so I bought myself a stepping machine. I put it upstairs in my bedroom, and I said, I'm going to do an hour a day of exercise because that's what all the experts were saying. Do an hour a day of cardio and you'll lose the weight. Well, I did 5 minutes on the stepper, and I almost had a heart attack. So successful people set a goal and then they adjust their goal. So I adjusted my goal to 5 minutes a day. That 5 minutes a day is a psychological trick. We can endure almost anything for 5 minutes, even exercise, even a 5 minute walk, 5 minutes of doing a a rotation of squats, lunges, push-ups, whatever. And if you do 5 minutes, there's a good chance you're going to do 10 or 15 or 20. What the research shows, and this is what I do, is 20 minutes a day. I'm just going to give you my routine because my routine is based on 30 years of personal experience and success, and it's backed by science. My master's of science degree, I looked at all this stuff and saying, what's the least amount of time I could commit to exercise with the most benefit? 20 minutes is that least amount of time, and you can get maximal benefit. Having said that, do 5 minutes, do 10 minutes, do 15 minutes. It all has value, especially if you're directing your mind towards that. So I do 20 minutes 5 times a week, and I do resistance training in a circuit. That means I do squats, lunges, pull ups, push ups. I use resistance bands, do diagonals with resistance bands, do pushing and pulling. I just repeat that. I go from one exercise to another for 20 minutes. What that does is it builds muscle. All the research is showing if you're exercising, unless you love cardio, do cardio. But if you have limited time and you're going to choose between one or the other, do resistance training. You'll get the most benefit. And do the resistance training in a circuit, meaning just go, don't do 3 sets of 10 of bicep curls. You could if you want to. I'm saying this makes more sense scientifically and myself experiencing it, personally. Go do 10 squats and then do 10 push-ups or 5 push-ups or 2, it doesn't matter. And then do 10 bicep curls. Do it in a circuit that will elevate your heart rate so you're getting a cardiovascular benefit at the same time you're doing resistance training. If you direct your thoughts towards something you love or nature or looking at videos that are edifying you or you're learning something, whatever, then you're building a positive loop towards exercise. It makes you consciously and subconsciously more likely to exercise the next time because you've built a positive relationship to it. You also, if you do 20 minutes 5 times a week, will see results. And if you're eating healthy, you'll definitely lose weight. Without a doubt, my clients all lose weight when they eat a certain way. I help them design their eating plan. And then they do at least 20 minutes 5 times a week. Every single one of them loses weight. That's positive feedback. Oh, I'm doing this. I'm losing weight. I'm finally succeeding, because so many people try to lose weight and they can't, or it's struggle and they, deprive themselves, and it becomes this negative thing. Now you're looking at nutrition and exercise completely different. They're complementing each other. You're seeing results. And if you've tied it into what you value most and the people that you love, you got this, again, this positive feedback loop. So to answer your question, do 5 minutes if that's what you have. If you can, work up to 20 minutes. And if you can do resistance training, that scientifically seems to have the best results for the amount of time that you're spending doing it.
Well, now I might have to amp myself up to 20, but then we're maxing out. But one of the other things, I recently started doing, and this is why I say put yourself on that workout journey, whether it's the 5 minutes, like we're talking about, 20, whatever it is, and have that consistency, because consistency will become a habit. But it's also good to have those other exercises that are just built into the things you like doing. For example, fishing. I fish in the summer, especially once we got to Alaska. I've become a little bit of a champion. I was scared in the beginning. I'd only fished a handful of times, only caught like one fish prior to us coming here. And so being in the water and fishing and knowing like I'm going to fight a fish at like 90 pounds and 5 foot, I'm like, the fish might win. Like, I've never done this. So I was really scared in the beginning, but I caught some really big fish. But what that's doing is it's exercising your stance. You have to be able to stand there and grip it, your movements, and really be balanced. So you need to be able to stay balanced in those moments, mentally and physically, because it can be draining. And you gotta know it's an interesting time. I
I
won't
love
dive
that.
too deep. But the other part of it is, now that it's, as the seasons have changed and there's been snow, for the first time, I've been joking, but it really is like this. In like 20 years, about 20, a little over than that, I learned to ski. My parents took us and we learned to ski, and we did a few trips. But I'm not skied in 20 years. And being in a place where there's very beautiful mountains and snow, my boyfriend snowboards, and he's like, "We're here. We have to take advantage of this. Come on, we're gonna put you in lessons, like, so you're comfortable." And I looked at him based at what you were just talking about too, and I was like, "That's fine. I'm all for it, and we'll see if I like it or not." And he was like, "Yeah, you gotta see if you like it. You might hate it. You might want to learn how to snowboard. Who knows?" I said to him, "But we have to be very clear. If it is cold, I'm someone who loves the warmth, and I am very transparent. If you don't prep me for the weather, and this has happened to me before, it could be great experiences, but the cold will hinder if I want to do it again. So if
Yeah.
you want me to enjoy something, just make sure, especially if I haven't done it before, that I'm dressing appropriately for me to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Because
Love it.
in 80-degree weather, I will wear a sweatshirt. So you need to take that into consideration when I'm prepping to learn to ski. And we were very cautious about that the very first time I went out there. And I got done, and it was an hour and a half lesson, and I went a few more times by myself down the what they have the bunny hill here. I don't really think it's a full bunny hill, like, let's be transparent, but it's a little bigger than that. But I did it, and I was like, "Oh, that was fun." And he was like surprised. I'm like, "I enjoyed it. I got to be present. I had that clarity. It started making me think about things, and I had my mind just thinking about, like, open the views, this and that." But I was like, I stayed warm, so now I'm willing to do it again.
Yeah. Good
And
for
the
you.
next time we went, and I'm riding, I got done at the end of the day. I was out there for like 3 hours. I could have kept going. And for a chunk of that time, I was by myself because I was still learning, and I was not comfortable going to even a bigger mountain of where I was. I was like, let's do this. It's not fake snow here in Alaska. It's real conditions. So you gotta be prepared for that. And I was just like, I got done, and I was like, yeah, I've thought of this. I thought of this idea,
Mhm.
and it was just moments of just taking a minute, being present, embracing the view, being in silence, not having access, like, there's no cell service, when you're going up the mountain, and just like looking around. And I was like, I feel so much more empowered
Yeah.
just because I had that time of clarity.
Yeah, that's awesome. And your brain was releasing all these feel good chemicals that we talked about. Plus, you're with your boyfriend, so your brain is releasing dopamine and serotonin because when we're with people that we want to be with, we release more of those feel good drugs, which is awesome, right? And you're in nature. So much of us are disconnected from nature, and there is, you don't need science to tell you this, but the more we connect with nature, it's where we're from, the more we feel like a connection to something because we live in artificial environments, and I'm not complaining about them. I'm comfortable in my apartment. But if we can get into nature, down by the water, up in the mountains, in a beautiful trail, in the woods, there is something that happens to us that is, I think, is primitive, and we connect to. And like you said, now you could have a completely different perspective on something. You're being present, but when you come out of that environment, you've done something good, you've done something in a beautiful place, and you've done something with someone that you like being with, something good is going to come out of that. And maybe it's another idea for, you know what, I'm going to do a podcast about this, or I'm going to reach out to this person, or that's what I'm talking about, holistic. Like, a lot of us try to separate our professional lives from our personal lives. And I understand why we do it because we might not like our professional lives and it might be stressful. But then we're missing out on something like you're doing where you could be somewhere totally unrelated and then just have an inspiration about doing something back in the workplace that is beneficial to you and the people that you serve. And then you feel like you're really doing something, and then you
Mhm.
feel more successful. And it goes back to resiliency and burnout. You don't feel like I'm just working, working, working and not getting any results for it. And eventually your body's just gonna, it's not sustainable. Your body's just gonna give out mentally and physically. So good for you that you're doing that. I thought you were
Thank you.
gonna say ice fishing when the weather got cold.
No, no.
Not yet, huh?
I mean, again, we got to be careful of how cold it gets. Because
Yeah.
but that's one of the things too, and I'd like to have your perspective on this. I think we all also need to be self-aware to have those conversations of like, okay, I'm willing to try something new, or I'm open to this, whether it's an idea of whatever, but where you meet that with. So I meet that
Yeah.
with of like, just be transparent with me.
Mhm.
Big part of that for me and comfortability is when I'm doing outdoor activities like the fishing that I've gotten into or skiing and it's
Yeah.
just meet that with, don't be like, oh, you'll be good, just get dressed,
Right.
whatever. If you tell me this is, and a
Mhm.
big part of my enjoyment when it comes to doing activities is I'm all in. People have joked as me being a planner and wanting to know when I go on family trips and we're going exploring in other countries, I'm not a part of any piece of planning. I'm just like, tell me where you want to go.
Mhm.
Where does everyone else want to eat? I'll figure it
Mhm.
out, whatever it might be. But just tell me what I need to bring
Yeah. You're
because
setting yourself.
that's where I meet my comfortability. If you want
Yeah.
enjoyment, just tell me so that then that's out of the way and I can be comfortable and I'm not going to be sitting there going,
Yeah. Good
oh,
for
I'm
you.
here.
What I'm hearing, Olivia, is you are setting yourself up for success. First of all, you're open minded. Good for you. A lot of us, we stay in our comfort zone and our lives don't change. And we're always like, why doesn't anything good happen to me? We have to step out of our comfort zones. You have to do that first. So you did, but you set boundaries. Again, you said, I'll do it, but tell me how to dress. If I'm warm, then I'll do it. So you set yourself up to succeed and you had your boyfriend or whoever else help you. You recruited other people. This is the other thing that successful people do because you don't know everything. You don't know maybe what gear is the best gear to you know use for fishing or for snowboarding or for hiking, whatever. You utilize those resources in other people. There's other people that are better at that stuff than us, and but you also set the parameter saying, I'll do it, but I have to be warm. And it worked out. If you went into it right and you're just like, I'm going to put on my sweatshirt and whatever jacket I have, and then you're freezing in the first 10 minutes, you're miserable. Your boyfriend's miserable. The whole activity doesn't go as planned. And then that could be a whole cascade of, why did you make me do that? I don't like the cold, right? It could go on a completely different way. So what you did, I think, set yourself up for success. Your boyfriend was open to it and amenable, so there's communication there. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, and I'm definitely the person that if I'm miserable because I'm cold, you will know I'm not enjoying this. And uh, as my boyfriend has learned, because we did try hiking, I'm scared of bears. So,
That's smart.
I mean, it's a valid thing to be scared
Yeah.
of, I feel
Yeah, you
like.
don't want to run into a bear.
I don't want to run into a bear. Black bears are very gentle. They're scared of humans, and that's what you have in Juneau. We don't have brown bears, but
Mhm.
still, like, I'm not totally comfortable with them. A
Mhm.
lot of people are more comfortable with outdoor hiking, and so, like, the first time I did not dress correctly because I thought it was going to be a shorter hike, and we realized on the hike that what Google Maps said was wrong. Don't always trust Google Maps. And I was um open to like a bear could come out at any time. So like I made it very well known that I was not having fun. And then he and my boyfriend and his two friends who were on the hike with us, he was under his command in the Coast Guard was like, you're never coming out here again. I'm like, that is fine. I'm just
Fine.
telling you. I'm like, if
Fine.
you want to do
You
this,
tried it.
like yeah, and like you said, the boundaries, and I love how you put that in perspective because sometimes it's not about whether you're willing to do something or not. It's setting those boundaries to
Mhm.
go listen. Like I even recently had the discussion about the hiking because obviously when summer comes up again, we're uh, that's what everyone's going to be doing.
Right.
And they're like, you don't want to miss out on it. I'm like, we need to then start small. Do
Yep.
not expect me to go on a 7 mile hike or accidentally, which has happened one time, walk into a bear's den. and then not be freaked out.
Yeah.
Like, it just, you have to then live with that. But that being said, Peter, how can people get in touch with you if they want to connect with you?
The best way is through my website, peterkofitsas.com. Peter, Kofitsas. It's a tough one, I know. I'm on social media too, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok. So if you just Google my name, all of that stuff will pop up. I guess Googling is the easiest way to do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Peter, for all of your insight today. I truly had an enjoyable time, and that it has really flown by, and I feel like we could keep talking.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Olivia. I really enjoyed it.
A few of our key takeaways from today's amazing conversation include anxiety is internal. So start prioritizing when we started talking about in the beginning, prioritize when you're sitting there in your anxiety. Where does it sit on my plate? What's important? How can I navigate this? And figuring out that plan for yourself as well as who am I? What am I doing? As Peter said, a lot of times it's about reframing, asking yourself, who am I? What am I doing? What do I want to do? As well as we need to unlearn to people please. I feel like this was so key and informative how Peter brought up that the biggest thing that we have to unlearn, especially as high achievers, as people who are busy, who are continuously setting goals and wanting to improve ourselves, is to unlearn how to people please. And in doing that, you will get more present. You can then, if someone comes to you and says, like, there's the fire, I need you to put it out. As Peter said, tell them you hear them, tell them where the priority lies, maybe ask someone else to step in. And the importance of starting to say no in a tactical but respectful way, where it's shown that, like, yes, this is important, but I also have these priorities. And whether it isn't a right fit, like Peter was talking about, it might not be a right fit for you at all, and setting those boundaries so you don't have burnout. It might be it's not the right time. It might be like, you have the skills to conquer this on your own. You don't need to rely on me, and build that out in a respectful conversation so that then you're saying no, but you're being respectful and making sure you're hearing someone else, while also then getting it off your plate so you don't create burnout by just saying yes to every single thing that comes on your plate, whether it is an opportunity or it's just someone else's problem. As well as burnout starts when we don't say no, leaning into what I was just saying, as well as an important question I want to challenge everyone to think about today that Peter mentioned is, why are you here? Why are you in the company you're in? Why are you doing what you're doing, whether it's professionally or personally? What drives you? As well as how can you reframe? So when you're stuck in those moments of feeling burnt out, the anxiety, feeling pressure, how can you reframe that? Peter brought up the perfect example of when he started working at the physical therapy office. What was it, almost 30 years ago? And he looked at it as such a negative thing. And by reframing it to, again, why am I here? Why am I doing this? How will this benefit me? That's another key one. He was able to reframe that. And as he said, he's still there one day a week. And it was such a different impact. So start thinking about that. Start thinking about, do I need to reframe my mind in these moments? And going off that, if you ask yourself a poor question, you're going to get a response you don't like. So what is a good question to ask yourself about the situation to help you reframe that mindset? As well as when working out, think about the positive things. This is so important that Peter brought up, is instead of looking at things that are negative, watching maybe TV about politics, whatever gets your blood boiling in a non-good way, book that. Start thinking about your vision. Give yourself clarity. Go outside and exercise. Get in different environments. This will help you. And when you shift your mindset to more of a positive while working out, as Peter mentioned, the endorphins start going, you start showing up better in other places as well. And lastly, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or ideally get yourself up to that 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week, you can maximize your workout routine and really we also focus, if you have only that 5, 10, 20 minutes to do the resistance training, how can you build in, and even if you can't do it for the whole time, how can you build in some of that resistance training into what you're doing every day? This was a great episode with our top-notch guest, Peter Kofitsas. Thank you for listening and have a successful day.